First thing I would like to do is to install LCARS. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm talking about the Star Trek looking operating system. Have you heard of LCARS? It's shown in Star Trek The Next Generation. I think it was sort of what the interface looked like on there. To be honest, I haven't really watched that yet, but that's my understanding of it. And apparently someone actually went out and made an operating system that looks just like the LCARS, and it's a Linux-based operating system that you can install right now if you wanted. I'm going to be doing that right now. We're going to install LCARS and get our computer to look like Star Trek. So that's the first thing we're doing today. So let's just get to it. So first of all, some of the prerequisites are that you should be running, I think it actually works with pretty much any Linux distribution, but I'm going to be doing it on Debian. You could either do it on Ubuntu, which is based on Debian, or Debian server itself. I'm going to be doing it directly on Debian server. So yeah, let's just do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to plug in my flash drive because I have a Debian ISO. I'll show you what you need to do first of all. Okay. So I'm going to launch the web browser. And Chris Titus made a really nice guide on how to install it, so I'm going to be referencing his guide to do that. So Chris Titus, LCARS, or also you can search Star Trek. So click that first result that you see, most likely. This is his guide, and I think he's got, so it kind of looks like this. Preview looks like this overall. So I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. So to get Debian, you could just get this link right here. And he recommends using Debian 10 or older, mainly because Debian 11 has some dependency issues with Python 3, for example. So Debian 10 or older, Ubuntu 22 or Ubuntu 20.04 or older. I think it works on Arch-based distributions, but I'm gonna do it on Debian. I'm not downloading this because I've already got a copy, but you can download that, or else if you want to manually search it, you can just search Debian ISO. They kind of make it hidden, make it really hard to find the Debian installation. And you want to do the net installer. I think you just go to here. No, that's not. Debian net install ISO, maybe. I can't even find it right now. I think this might be the page that you get it from. I can't remember. You can get it from this link most likely, but here, let's just move on to the next thing for now. So I'm going to plug in my flash drive. I'm going to actually install this on my secondary PC. Otherwise, you would probably install it on a virtual machine. But I'm going to install it on an actual computer here. I'm going to plug in my flash drive real quick. And it's on my secondary PC that I'm going to install it on. So without further ado, let's just do that. So if I go to here, this is the flash drive that I just inserted, and I've got the Debian install right here. So I'm going to reboot the computer and we'll boot right into it. Otherwise, you would create a virtual machine and use that. So you can look up instructions for how to make a USB image, or also you can just insert the ISO directly into your virtual machine. So I'm going to actually install it on my secondary hard drive, because I'm not going to do it on the primary. Okay, so now we're in the BIOS. This is where I'm going to configure the hard drive interface. My normal Windows installation is on the M.2 drive, so I'm going to disable that. I'm going to be using the SATA drive, which I currently have Windows Server on right now. I've been trying to get familiar with Windows Server related technologies. I might hop into there just for a second. Then I can show you like how you maybe do NFS. This is planned. That's how you restart Windows Server right there. We're going to install that Star Trek operating system now. And all it really is a theme, more or less, and it uses certain dependencies to make it work. And we're going to see that in a little bit. But for now, I'm going to hold F10. That way I can boot into my USB flash drive. I'm using Ventor so that I can have multiple ISOs at once and be able to select which one I want at a given moment. It makes you able to utilize the USB drive a lot more. And I mentioned this in past videos too. But I'm going to select my Debian 10. Since Debian 11 has dependency issues right now, I'm going to use Debian 10 instead. And I typically don't use the graphic installer. I actually have a Debian 11 system installed on the main system right now. I'll showcase that later on. But for now, let's get this installed. And while we're waiting for it to install, I'm going to check to make sure that everything is working, like the audio, video, that sort of thing. Because last time it didn't. I just want to make sure we don't run into that problem with the video freezing up. That was aggravating. OBS looked perfectly fine. Everything was working perfectly fine. It just didn't record properly. I don't remember this occurring. I've never seen this issue before, but I'm going to hit yes for now. Oh wait, I have to insert a USB stick or something. I've never seen this issue before. I've installed this Debian 10 on a virtual machine and none of this happened. It kind of looks like it's related to Wi-Fi, but that doesn't matter, so I'm not even going to be using that anyway. I'm only ever going to use Ethernet, assuming that's what the problem is. So I am installing this on a host machine rather than a virtual machine, so if you're going to do that, make sure you know what you're doing. You don't want to like override your main installation. What should I call this? Enterprise? Like Chris did. And I'm not doing this domain stuff. And typically you don't want to set a root password. It's just a best security practice. But I don't think that I have sudo installed right now, and I will need root to install that. So I will set a password for now, and I'll show a manual way you can disable this if you want later on. But for now, I will set a root password, even though it's typically not best practice. By not setting a root password, it disables the account altogether. And then you can only authenticate through sudo, basically. It's a better security practice. I'm going to name the user Joseph, probably. But I might also want to do a Star Trek character. Chris used Kirk. But I'll use my own name. Might as well. That'll be the username as well. And then the password will be that same one as the roots. Doesn't matter if I tell you guys about it, but yeah. I'm Central Time. That's why I selected that. So now I do want to keep my Windows Server installation, so I'm going to be partitioning this a little bit differently. So we're going to go to Manual, and I'm going to manually partition this. So this is my inventory disk right here, I believe. And this is, no, I'm mixing them up. This is. So that's my Windows Server partition. What I would like to do is shrink it so we can put the Star Trek operating system on here. But if you do it in a virtual machine, you shouldn't have to do this. You can get away with guided partitioning. But since I want to keep my other partitions with Windows intact, I'm going to do that. My Windows 10 installation that we were on at first is on a completely different drive. So that's not even showing up here since I disabled that interface. So I'm going to shrink this partition. Resize this partition. Gparted might actually make this a little bit easier, but the resize operation might take a long time because it has to make the data, even if you're having some free space available, it has to physically probably reallocate some data, which is why shrinking partitions will typically take a long time. And that's what I'm going to search and make sure that this video is still working properly. But either way, I'll just say yes for now. So this is how much space do I want to leave for the new partition we're creating. By the way, if you're not partitioning, you can skip this step. I don't know how far I need to skip, but just find where I get past this screen here. Otherwise, I think I'm going to leave about 100 gigs should be more than enough. So I'm going to change this to 899.6. Then I won't have to spend as much time shrinking, I don't think. Because it doesn't have as much stuff to reallocate. So, looks like I can partition it, but it hasn't actually applied yet, I don't think. So that free space is what we're going to use for our booting. So now the question is, do I want to reuse this EFI system partition, or do I want to create a new one? Trying to think of what I did on my previous Debian installation. I either have 2 EFI partitions or I have 1. I can't quite remember what I did. Wish I had an easy way to check without getting out of here, but I don't. I'm gonna create another one for now, but that might not be the right way to do it. Let's find out. Shall we break some stuff today? Let's do it. So I'm going to create a new partition. I should also mention that this is using GPT. So that's why I can create as many partitions as I want, and I'm not stuck with MBR's limitations. Now, I was going to say to use GPT, you need to boot UEFI on the motherboard rather than the typical legacy boot. But actually in Linux it doesn't even matter, so you don't have to worry about that. You could use MBR or GPT. I would use GPT because it should work regardless. So I'm going to create a new partition. I'm not going to have my boot partition 100 gigabytes obviously. Maybe I'll make it like that many megabytes. Since I only plan on installing 1 bootloader, that should be enough space. And I'll do it at the beginning of that pre-allocated space. I'm going to use it as the EFI system partition. And the bootable flag is on, because that's where we will boot our system. Otherwise, I might be using it with this. Let's just see what this does. Now we're going to create the storage partition where our actual data goes. I'm going to use ext4, otherwise you could use betterfs. That's the correct mount point. I like how I can figure it out based on the size. It's not bootable. That's pretty much it. I'm not going to set up a swap partition. People typically do that, but I'm not going to do that here. So let's just see what we can do here. So that's the partitioning that I'm doing. Again, in a virtual machine, you don't have to do that. But this is how I'm doing it. We'll find out if this works. Or also it'll be like Chris's live stream that he did a couple years ago. Chris Titus on YouTube. He did a live stream a couple years ago where he spent like over an hour partitioning, like what I was just doing. It kept running into errors. And I think it was because he had a corrupt USB drive. So if you have a way to verify your installation media while you're doing this, definitely do that. But we got past where he errored out, so we're doing good thus far. Now, one other thing I will point out is this is the net installer, which means it'll update all the packages as you install it, rather than installing what's stored on this installation media and then updating it later. It'll update it right away. And within a production environment, you definitely want to install the latest updates right away. There's pretty much no exception to that. I think I'll just go with this mirror for now. My internet sucks anyway, so it won't really make a difference. But you might have a faster mirror where you're located compared to the default one. So while I'm waiting for this, let me finish what I was just talking about first. So in a production environment, you want to update all your packages right when you're installing it. There's pretty much no exception to that rule. So now right here, it's downloading the software from the internet and then installing it. You could do an offline install, but if you're going to update your packages anyway, then go with this. Now, I was just thinking about whether I want to switch from Debian stable to Debian SID. I may want to do that for this. So Debian basically has different types of application branches, and that basically just affects how new the applications are when you install them. So there's a stable branch, which I think has packages like 1 or 2 years old. Those are some pretty old packages if you want to have the latest and greatest. That's what Arch would be used for instead. While these are older packages, they're also a lot more stable and things are just less likely to go wrong overall. Then there's the unstable branch, which is slightly less stable. I think it gets like 6 months updates or something. I could be wrong about that. Then there's the SID branch, which is the least stable of all of them. But it's certainly a lot more stable than Arch typically is. So yeah, Debian SID is technically still very stable compared to other options. So here, we don't want to select any desktop environment because we'll install that ourselves. I'm going to disable the print server and enable SSH because I would like to SSH into this machine, and you will see why later on. So doing some foreshadowing here. So now it's gonna install all the packages and stuff. So I think I got my point across. Do your research if you're still unsure about the different application branches. I may end up switching from stable, which is the most stable form with the oldest packages, over to SID, which is slightly less stable, but still very stable overall compared to Arch, and I think even Fedora. So do your research if you're curious about that. But I may end up switching from stable to SID. Just pointing that out right now. So I'm going to real quickly make sure that the recording is still functioning alright. I will do my test real quickly that I like to do. Everything is very responsive right now, so I think we're fine. But I'm going to test it out, and then I'll be right back while we're waiting for this. And make sure that the video hasn't frozen up. Right, so everything does appear to be working very well. You probably already knew the answer, but I did not. You knew because you're into the future using your fancy technology to watch this. But I'm stuck with this. So anyway, this now finished installing, so we're going to continue. We're going to see if we can boot into it. Because I would still like to use Windows Server while this is installed at the same time. That's why I'm doing a dual boot here. So it looks like we got Windows Boot Manager right here. I'm going to see if Windows still works. That would be nuts if it did. Nice. So if I want to go into Windows, I can do this. Although I kind of regret going into it because it will take a while to start off with all those services I have on Windows Server right now. I'm gonna force reboot this. Typically you wouldn't force reboot a Windows Server, but this is more of a lab environment, so it really doesn't matter. So this time we're gonna select our Debian system that we're setting up. So it should start up here. So yeah, pay attention to the setup you're doing, whether it's in a virtual machine or on an actual machine. Enterprise login. What a great start. So I will point out, what was I going to point out? I'm going to talk about my hard drive configuration a little bit later, so stay tuned for that. So I'm going to log into the root account. Actually, I could log into my main account, but I bet we won't be able to use sudo, which is the reason why I kept the root account enabled. So let's see if we can... Yep, sudo is not found, which means we won't be able to do things that require administrative privileges, like installing packages. So to do that, I'm going to say exit and log in with the root account. Otherwise, you could... This is why I set up the root account for now. Otherwise, you could literally do su and then root. Then you can sign in that way. But I just typed in exit and signed into root, what I just showed here. So that's how you get into root. So to install sudo, you're on apt install sudo. While I'm at it, I think I'm also going to install git, because we will need that to install the Star Trek operating system. So this is on a basic terminal right now. I don't know how to change the font, so I'm sorry about the text being fairly small. I could temporarily resize it with OBS, I guess, but it might make things look a little terrible. Just bear with me. So I'm gonna install sudo so we can do things with administrative privileges without the root account. Git. What else do we need? I'm gonna install Vim because that's how I edit my text files. I think that's all we need for right now. Actually, let's install sudo, then we can use our regular user account to make sure sudo works to install those other things. So I'm gonna install sudo. Actually, before you do that sort of thing, you should run apt update before you even install anything, but with the net install, it doesn't really matter that much. So all packages are up to date. So now I'm gonna sign in. Well, we got sudo now. So to make it so that sudo actually works with our user account, we have to edit the sudoers file. So I'm gonna use Vim to edit it. If you're not familiar with Vim and all of its intricacies, you could use nano etc sudoers. And I will have to make the screen the normal size, so I apologize about that. But just bear with me here. And then it's pretty easy to edit things with nano, but I like using Vim. I'm gonna actually create a vimrc file to set some of the settings that I like to use with it. So I'm gonna do that first in the root account, because when I use sudo, I will need to reference the vimrc in the root account. So I'm gonna create a vim /root/.vimrc. And it didn't work because it's not installed. So I'm gonna install Vim now, which is basically a text editor that's got advanced commands and things like that. Makes text editing so efficient, but if you're not familiar with it, then it can be rather difficult to use. So I'm going to run that command that I tried running before. There we go. So what I like to do is show relative line numbers. So I'm going to hit I to start typing. I always like typing in set number and set relative number. Then I'll show line numbers in the future. And I always like to switch J and K around because I press J to go down and K to go up normally, but I like it the other way around. I prefer to press J to go up and K to go down for navigation. So I'm pressing K to go up right here, J to go down. I want to switch that. So to do that, press I again. I pressed escape, by the way, so I could use the J and K keys. Press I to go back into insert mode. That's pretty much the most basic parts of Vim. I'm not really going to go over how to use Vim anymore. But you could use Nano instead if you're unfamiliar with it, because it's a lot more user-friendly. But I use Vim now, so yeah. So I'm going to say nmap J to up, and then K is down. Then I hit escape, and normally I would press :WQ to save it, but instead I'm going to press Shift ZZ. That does the same thing, pretty much. And then I'm going to copy that same file to my user account. So I'm going to say cp root.vimrc over to home, not pi. Joseph is my username. So I just copied my vimrc so it'll apply everywhere now. I think I'm just going to go with the small text for now. Although it wouldn't hurt to learn how to make it bigger. Let's learn how to make the text bigger. I I'm fine with this size, but for you viewers, you might not be, so that's why I'm gonna resize it. So, change font size. Yeah, this will go over how you do it. So I'm gonna follow these settings right here to increase the size. Pretty straightforward stuff, and they have nice pictures showing how to do it. So let's see, first of all, how do I get to it? D package reconfigure. So D package reconfigure. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, so there's supposed to be a hyphen right here. So I'm basically resizing the font now. D package reconfigure console-setup. I should really know how to do this. So I'm gonna select UTF-8. Am I supposed to select something else? I feel like I'm supposed to select something else. The Latin, combined Latin, blah blah blah. I think this will be fine. I think it might have to do with the font. So then, just say fixed. What? This looks different than the other guide. But I think that's size 18 right there. Well, that didn't work. There's actually a file you can edit. etc default console setup. Man, that's unfortunate. Never mind, I'm just gonna deal with this. Anyway, we have to add our user to sudo. I'm gonna not do password-based authentication, so I'm gonna say vim etc sudoers. We'll be on a user interface soon, I think. So I'm gonna jump to that line 20 where it says root equals all blah blah blah. I'm gonna add a line right there and say Joseph all equals all, and then I think in parentheses no pass wd colon all. I think that's the syntax that I used to add my username to sudo. Shift ZZ is not working, so I think it's a read-only file, so I have to do colon WQ exclamation. Okay, that worked. So now if I sign in as I feel like OBS has a shortcut to auto resize. A source, but I can't remember how to do that right now. Never mind. So let's see what we got here. So let's sign in as our normal name now. So sudo apt install git. Ooh, we got a syntax error. I did something wrong here. So I'm gonna sign in as root like this. And then see if we can identify. Oh, wait a minute. I think I have the parentheses wrong. I could have sworn it was like this. Oh wait, I think the parentheses is only around this all right here. I think this is where the parentheses goes. And then this has no parentheses at all. I think that's how it's supposed to be. Okay, let's try that once. Sudo apt install git. There we go, now it works. I just had the syntax wrong in the sudoers file. What I have now is correct. Alright. So now we should be in a phase where we can install that. One more thing I will need to install with my dual boot. This isn't relevant for the Star Trek stuff, but for my dual boot, I will have to install. Now, why don't I install when we're in our interface? So now let's see what's next. Now we just have to install dependencies right here, like Xorg, LightDM, and whatever browser you want. I'm not going to install Brave, although I would like to, just because I had to add some dependency and I'm not going to do that right now. But for now, let's install those dependencies. So sudo in your main user, sudo apt install x11. I think that's all you need. No, xorg. I don't think it's case sensitive. LightDM, which is I think what it actually runs off of for the interface. And I'm gonna do Chromium instead of Brave. Okay, so now it's gonna install everything when you go like this, which will take a little while. This would probably be a good time for me to talk about my partitioning setup now, while I'm waiting for all this stuff to install right here. So, as far as switching out the processor, I'll elaborate on that in the next casual video because we're going to actually do stuff with it. So, the thing I was going to mention was the new partitioning, or the partitioning that I currently use on this computer. Since I'm actually doing this on a host computer through a capture card rather than a virtual machine. So I have an M.2 drive in there that's 1 terabyte. That's where my main Windows installation is. And then I have a Debian installation on there. And the reason I'm not just adding the LCARs to my current Debian installation is because that's Debian 11. Also, I want to leave that system alone. This is temporary. I just want to explore this a little bit. And then I have a SATA drive as well, which is also 1 terabyte. That's where I have Windows Server, and now this. So that's how things are partitioned on there. Make sure you don't just go willy-nilly with your partitioning. You want to make sure you know what you do when it comes to that. Otherwise, just use a virtual machine, or even get another hard drive that's empty, and you can just throw everything on there. But you also want to make sure that you select the correct hard drive when you install the operating system, because if you don't, that can be a problem. So yeah. So that's why I'm setting things up the way I am right now. Windows Server still works, so it looks like creating 2 ESP partitions worked out just fine. So currently I think it defaults to the Debian one, and I think I could also manually select Windows from my boot menu. I don't need to launch Windows Server through Grub. I can press F10 on this system and select Windows, and it'll just jump straight to Windows. I think that's why there's 2 EFI partitions, one for each of them. They're both bootable. Otherwise, I could just have one that's bootable and you just Grub to get to everything. So the other thing that I was about to install, but I'm gonna wait till later, is OS Prober. So if you're adding entries to Grub and you need to install Windows, then so this is gonna be a lot faster now that it's downloaded everything. Uh-oh. That kind of looks strange. It might be fine though. But OS, if you're customizing your Grub install, you need OS Prober to detect other operating systems besides Linux ones. So you have Windows, you need OS Prober to detect that. And I think you add something in a configuration file, I don't really remember. But I've used that on my Debian setup. So yeah, that's my partitioning thing. I think this is gonna finish quick enough. Yeah, this is about to finish. So I'll just wait for it now. There is something that I'm gonna mention later on that I did in a previous video, but has caused problems recently. And I'll show the solution as well. So now this is installed. So in theory, we should have all the dependencies that we need. So now, I don't think we do this right here. So we could just run all this. Unfortunately, I can't copy and paste right now. So I'm gonna have to manually type this all out. Unless I copy like a text file or something. That would make a lot of sense. I think I'm probably going to end up doing that to the flash drive. So I have the instructions over on this screen. So I can type stuff right there. So first of all, I'll do some of the steps manually. So to install lcars, I recommend that we make a directory called lcars build or whatever you want. So what I did is I just created a folder, and then now we're gonna go into that folder by typing in cd, then start typing in lcars and then hit tab and it'll autofill. So now we're in that folder right now. Nothing in it yet. So now we're gonna actually have to install wget as well. So apt install wget. Actually, it's installed, so never mind. So now I'm gonna copy the rest of this script. But even if I have a text file, how do I copy and paste? I'll create a script out of it. So if you don't want to have to manually type in all the text that's right here, I'll show you a more automatic way to do it. So I'm gonna remove the flash drive. I don't think it's mounted. If I look at my mounted devices, I don't even have the flash drive mounted. See the SDB and then the SDB1 and SDB2. If you look at the last column that says mount point right there, none of those SDB devices towards the bottom or even mounted to anything. It's just blank. So in theory, I should be able to remove the flash drive without safely ejecting, because it's not even really inserted to begin with. So what I'm going to do right here is insert it into my main PC. And we're going to go over to here. And I'm going to copy all the text. You can just click copy right here. But I'm just going to copy this stuff since I've already done these first two things. Otherwise, if you haven't yet, you could just copy all of it. I didn't think of this till last second. So sorry about this botched tutorial. I'm going to probably put this in my utilities folder for now. Create a new text file, or else I could just create a text file in a program and then save it here. I'm gonna call it lcars script. I'm gonna actually have to rename it later on, but we'll get there. So now I have this open right here. I'm just gonna paste it there. So now that's saved out. We got all the text in there that we want. I'm gonna safely eject the drive. I'm not using the drive anymore, so it's strange that it would do that. But what you're not seeing is I'm ejecting the drive right here. It errored out when I first did it, but now it works. So now I can take this out, put it back into the second PC. Now if you're using a virtual machine, there's other ways you could do this. If you really want to, you could create an ISO file and copy things to there. Or else you could just manually type everything out if you want. No big deal. You could even put the text on GitHub and then pull it from there. Doesn't really matter too much. There's a lot of different ways you could do it, but this is how I'm doing it. So now let's go back onto the system. So now if we type in lsblk, I can see that my device is showing up right there, the SDB1. I can tell that's what it is because the size is 238.5 gigabytes. I need a way to be able to access what's on it now, so what I'm going to do is type in sudo mount, and the SDB1 is what I want, so I type /dev/SDB1 space, then /MNT. Oh great, it's an exFAT file system, so I can't read it. You're probably not going to run into this because the default format for your drive probably won't be that. But I'll use this micro SD card for now to do the same thing. This tutorial's not going very well, is it? So I'm gonna insert my memory card. It's a Raspberry Pi memory card, so I'm kind of stuck with this partition right here, but I can put it on here and it won't be too big of a deal. I'm going to recreate that file. I just pasted the text. Now I'm going to save it to that drive and call it whatever I want. And just save it. So I should be able to put that into, so the drive is H or I. So when I eject this drive, it doesn't matter which one of these I select, it's all part of the same thing. And you don't technically have to reject it, but the odds of data corruption are just a lot less when you do. So I just managed to form the habit of doing that. So now I'm going to insert the SD card into the second computer. You're probably not going to run into that error that I did, but this is how you work around it. So I'm going to type in lsblk again. And now there's new stuff, as you can see. It says mmcblk0, and then P1 and P2. Since I put it in the boot partition, I'm interested in the one that had the size of 256M. That's the mmcblk0P1. So I'm going to run the command again, sudo mount. Now I'm going to say dev mmcblk0P1. That's what it is for me. You figure out what the device is for you to /mnt. So now that worked. I just had a file system issue, which you're probably not going to run into. I tend to run into these obscure issues, so very typical for me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to temporarily go into that mnt because I have the file in there. If I type ls, actually I'm going to do an ls-l, then we can see everything all on one screen. You can see this is alphabetically sorted. lcars script.txt, that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to rename this to a .sh file. So I'm going to type in mb and then start typing in lcars. I had it capitalized, so I have to type it capitalized here. I'm going to press tab to autofill that. Then I'm going to type the lcars script again and autofill it again. But this is going to be changed to .sh. And permission is denied. I should have had sudo mb rather than just mb. But I could also say sudo !! And now it worked. So next thing we need to do is make it so that the script is executable. Actually, first we should probably copy the script to that previous directory that we were in. So I should be able to say sudo cp lcars.sh, and I renamed it from a .txt to a .sh. So actually if I were to list all the files again, now it says lcars script.sh instead. So I'm gonna do I could resize this for now. So now I'm gonna say sudo cp lcars over to, I'm gonna type it dash because the last directory I was in is where I want to copy it to, I believe. So now I'm going to type in cd dash, and now we're back where we were originally. That didn't work. I'm going to type cd ... try this now. That didn't work. I lied about those instructions, so I'm going to type cdmnt again. And I'm going to copy lcars script.sh to tilde / I'm double tapping tab. Then I can see lcars build. That's what I really want to do. And I want to put sudo at the beginning. So now if I go back to that directory into lcars build, there it is. Now we need to make it executable, I think. Actually, I'm going to list it. It looks like it is executable already. If it's not, you would say sudo chmod +x. And then that script. And then you'll be able to run the script now, and it'll essentially run everything on that website. It'll run everything we copied here automatically. So now I'm going to run those commands once. And let's see how it works. So now I'm going to say ./ whatever we called that script. So now I'm going to resize this. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I'm going to run that script. I press tab autofill again, so now I'm going to hit enter. So now it's doing those exact things. Oh shoot. I'm gonna open up the script file and see if I can copy and paste stuff directly from Vim and run it. No. Really? That's unfortunate. I was gonna say, can I redirect it? I'm gonna do something that's probably not gonna work. I'm gonna say sed-n-e 1p. You would do 3p if you copied all the text, so that's line 1 of the file. And then reference the file here. Then I'm gonna redirect it. I could probably redirect it to bash, sudo bash or something. Do we have internet connectivity? First of all, that could be the error. I just pinged Google. That's working fine. I press Control-C to stop the ping. Why was that not found? Oh, I don't know if you can tell, but on the second line, right at the end, there's a %0D, which I think is making it not work. If I knew how to parse out those last two characters with a single command, then I would, probably. That's not the original file, is it? No, it's not. I did write a script before where I parsed out characters, but you know what? At this point, I'm probably just going to type it manually. Unless I could think of something better. Another thing you could do is just copy the links directly. So copy these links after the wget, download the files, and use a flash drive to copy them over. That's another option. Didn't think of that till just now, so I'm now copying them onto a drive. And I'm gonna do that and basically get it back on the system. I'll be back once I get it on the system. Okay, so I just copied. I downloaded the first file already, but I copied the rest of them to this folder right here. I'm now going to safely eject. And I guess update Java, apparently. Just to make myself more secure. But I just safely ejected the drive, I believe. Yep. Now I'm going to put it in the other system. Right. So before I removed the drive, I actually typed in umount/mnt to safely eject it. Then I had to do the sudo double exclamation mark again. Now that I've inserted it, I can see that it's I'm gonna run this command again to mount the drive, and so I want to copy all the files to here. There's the first .dub file, so I want to copy the other ones to here. I'm just gonna say sudo cp/mnt/lcars. I basically put them all inside that folder in the lcars right there. So I'm gonna do a star right there. Since I got all those .deb files, I'm just gonna put a star, which is all of them. I always like to put -3 if I'm copying more than one file at a time, then I can see what's happening. And then I'm just gonna put a dot here to copy it to where we are now. There we go. So now we got all the .dub files. I'm gonna real quickly make sure that my system is responsive. Yep. Just to make sure that the video didn't likely freeze up. Alright. So now I'm gonna basically execute the rest of the script now. So I say sudo dpackage-i and then a star.deb, so it's all the Debian files. It'll install every one of them. So error, I think it kind of worked. I think that's why we then do sudo apt-f install. Then I think it should fix whatever errored out according to this guide. So in theory, if we reboot the system, I think it'll work now. So I'm going to type sudo reboot, which will reboot it. So now I can just select our Debian again. I don't think those errors are problems. So now we have a graphical environment for once. And I think I should get multiple options of what to boot into. So up here where it says X session and then lcars WM, click on the lcars WM right there and then sign in with your credentials. There we go. Look familiar? So these numbers right here are actual processes. And then there's sound related stuff right here. One of them correlates with the RAM usage. This is like basically nothing right here. So then it doesn't really look like anything's happening, but I think if I press so there's a terminal. So it says Joseph at Enterprise. The terminal is right there. but I think we have to configure some things. So I think we have to copy. So sudo cp, sorry about the text being so small. So there's our full screen. Just press WinM to do that. Oh, I think I know what we need to do. If I use Kitty for the terminal rather than this, sudo apt install Kitty, then I think we might get a better size. If I type Kitty right there, there we go. So it's a little bigger now. So I think if I do, I'm gonna see if there's a Kitty configuration to make the text a little bigger. So sudo vim.config/kitty. I have a configuration on my Debian, my other Debian installation. Maybe I'll actually, I think now that we're in a graphical environment, we should in theory be able to pull up our web browser. How do I run programs? This programs button's not working. If I type Chromium, then we got a web browser. So I should be able to go to github.com/ChrisTitusTech. He's got a Kitty configuration under Debian Titus. So we're actually web browsing on the Star Trek operating system now. It even shows the title down here, as you can see. Doesn't all fit, but whatever. So under .files, Kitty. I'm gonna at least copy this configuration. So I'm gonna say raw. Control A, Control C, Alt Tab to come back to here. So now Chromium, since that's open, I can't do anything with the terminal right now. So I'm gonna press Shift Z. Then I think you type in BG. So now the Chromium still works, but I could use the terminal again. So I'm going to say vim.config kitty. Then I think it was called kitty.com. Kitty.com. That's what the terminal is called right here. So I'm going to paste all that text in. Theme.conf might error out, but whatever. So now I think if I reload Kitty, why did that not work? Whoops. I just pressed WinQ, which I believe logs you right out. So I'm going to sign back in. And launch the terminal. There we go. That looks a lot better now, doesn't it? Not quite perfect, but I'm going to go with this for now. So now we're going to modify some of the LCAR's configuration. So I think in etc, sudo cp etc, then there's a lot of possibilities right here. I think there's an LCAR's one. I just press Q so I can keep typing. Lcars DE. Then a star. And I'm gonna copy that to .config / lcars DE. I'm gonna copy all those files over to there. So now if we were to go into the .config, then lcars DE, and of course the text on the bottom literally changed to that. That's pretty cool. Then let's see. So if I type ls, we got a settings.xml and set status config. So under status config, there are a couple things we're going to have to change in there. I want to launch another Kitty terminal, and then I think I'm going to type in that symbol, then I should be able to open up another one. Oh, I can't use this one now. Well, I'm going to press Control Z, which is not actually working. Let me see what this is real quick. Just someone here to bug us, really, on the phone. If I press Control C. Oh, interesting. Now there's two terminals open. And this one, of course. I'm pressing Alt Tab to switch between everything right now. Okay, so let's see here. What was I gonna do? Oh, status config. I wanted to be able to have another terminal in case I need to run a command to see what's going on. Oh, I could do that in Vim too. One of the cool things about it. So, status config. Vim even has its configuration with the relative line numbers. So if I want to go down to this line, just type in 26K. Boom, I'm there. If I want to go to that 0 and x equals 0, I just do that. So Vim is really cool in that sense. So I think line 41 is what they're interested in. I don't think we have to change anything there. But this value right here, the WLP2S0, that has to be a network device, which is why I needed the other terminal here. So to figure out what it is, you can type in ifconfig. And I don't even have ifconfig, so I can also type in IPA. And then I can see that my IP address is, or not the IP address. My interface is EN01, I mean. So this value right here should be EN0 or 01. I usually call 00 and then O for the actual letter, and usually it is a 0, so I confused myself there. Okay, so then I believe the other thing we're messing with is, obviously we were just messing with this. There's asterisks right here, which means we're gonna have to modify this as well. So that's what I'm looking at now. Gonna look at my phone for a second. Sorry, bear with me. All right. So now, so this line right here, I think we might leave all the characters there. I'm not sure. Like the F0, no, it's supposed to correspond with sys/class/net right here. So what I could actually do to quickly view what's in it is type in colon exclamation mark. I'm gonna do less dash capital N. I don't need the line numbers, but I like to do it. For /sys class net. And then we can see what is a directory. Plus -n sys class net en01 is also directory, huh? Or you can press the up arrow to re-execute stuff on here too. That's cool. So this is a Vim thing, but if you're not using Vim, you could use the terminal and just as easily go like this. Might use cat rather than less. Let's figure out what the sys class net en01 that starts with E something. En01 might be all there is. I don't see anything else that's special there. So I think it's just en01 probably. So I'm just gonna do en01 like that. And I think that's all we need to change for right now. But the settings has shortcuts and things like that, so I think we could just run vim settings.xml. Whoops, not / vim settings.xml. So those are all of our bindings right here. So I use X rather than T. That's a read-only file, so I think we do need sudo. So rather than lint, I'm going to change that T to an X. And rather than Xterm, I now use kitty as you saw before. So I'm going to add that. Win B, the Windows key in B is for the browser. Instead of saying Firefox, I'm going to say Chromium. I think that's probably all I have to change right there. The other shortcuts you can modify if you want. Looks like Alt F4 closes the window just like in Windows. As far as other settings go, think I'll probably mess with that some other time, and I'll try to write down what I did so that I can showcase it here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for that. So now I don't think it'll apply yet. I'm just gonna log out with WinQ, then log back in real quick. Let's see if the shortcuts work. So WinX, boom, pulls up the correct terminal now. WinB now pulls up a web browser. And in theory, I should be able to press it again for more. Yep, there's two terminals open. And Alt F4 to close out an application. So obviously people talk about how you miss some screen real estate, but you can always press WinM to make it bigger like this, or even like this. So yeah. Now this changed, I think. Probably has to do with the wireless. Chris was also talking about installing also utils for the sound. We could see if the sound works too in a little bit. So I'm gonna go back to the terminal. Sudo apt install also utils, I think it is. Then it'll install the required sound utilities. It looks like it just started up a process potentially. I would probably log out and back in. And technically the keyboard shortcuts we can pretty much configure to do really anything. It's actually running a script. Or bash commands, I mean. Terminal commands. Now as far as getting the theming to work over here, since I spent so much time on this, I'm not even gonna try to get that figured out right now, but I'll do it sometime later. I'll try to write down what I do, and then I can show you some other time. There's a way to like show your window on the side. And programs. This button doesn't seem to work either. I would imagine .config all cars de status config. I imagine that you configure something right here. Might have to install like a theme or something. This Wi-Fi status could be completely gone as far as we're concerned. Might have to install a Python dependency. I'm gonna see if Python is installed right now. Looks like it is. How about Python 3? Yep. So Python 2 and 3 are both installed. So that's not a problem. It should be able to run this script right here. But I imagine that the things that don't work can be configured right in here. I'll look into that later, but for now, why don't we see if sound works real quick. So I'll pull up the browser. YouTube.com. Why don't we just real quickly see if it has audio. So I'm gonna make it so I can hear it. And I'm gonna unmute the capture card audio. Let's see if this works. I'm not hearing it, so there's probably something else I'm missing. Actually, it's unmuted. But I don't think there's audio coming through. I'm sure there's something else I could do. I'm not even gonna worry about that right now. I'm gonna mess around with this later, but I think we got this good enough for now. So that's pretty much it at its core. You can of course install more utilities like um, so we can install more utilities like everybody seems to install NeoFetch, which allows you to see what kind of utilities are on there. Or the specs, I should say. It's a nice command line utility that shows all the different specs. It makes it really easy to do that. So I can say NeoFetch. And I can see I'm running Debian even though it looks like LCARS. I got under 1,000 packages. I'm using LCARS WM for the window manager. I'm only using 300 megs of RAM. So I could have less than a gig of RAM and be able to run this just fine. So if you had like a really old computer, you want to repurpose it, you could probably install something like this on there if you were crazy enough. You can also run basic programs like CMatrix. I'm also going to install Cowsay and OS Prober Grub Customizer in case I want to configure Grub later on. I'm going to install all 4 of those utilities. So CMatrix does that, which is pretty cool. Of course, I could go like this. Then we get a full screen matrix right there. What else did I just install? Cowsay. So you can make a Cowsay stuff, which is pretty cool. OS Prober and Grub Customizer. I'm not going to use that right now, but I imagine I will later. So yeah, that's basically the Star Trek operating system in a nutshell. You can use it like an actual computer and do all sorts of cool stuff. I can edit text, I can run Python scripts easily because I have Python installed. I could install like VS Code if I wanted to edit programs and things like that. I could install an Office suite. Pretty much whatever you want. I think as far as like playing videos, I would use celluloid with MPV probably. That should be a pretty good experience overall. I would literally install MPV and celluloid. I don't remember what it's called right now, but well, I could do apt search celluloid. Then I would imagine it might be one of these, I'm not sure. That might be where I want to switch to the SID branch. You would just modify something in etc app sources, and I think where it says Buster updates or where it says main, I think you would change that to SID. I don't know if that's right, but something like that. That's how you change the branch. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's how you would do it. So yeah, that's all I'm going to do on here. Why don't we launch my other Debian installation, shall we? So I can showcase that and do a couple things on there that I've been meaning to do for a while. I would spend more time on that Star Trek thing, but I spent way more time than I was hoping to in the first place. This is just like the first thing out of almost 10 things I wanted to do. So I'm going to disable SATA and re-enable my PCI. So now I can launch Windows 10 and then my other Debian installation. Oh, I forgot to mention how to disable the root account. I'll show you what the command is later on. I have the command written down. You know what? I'm gonna real quickly demonstrate how to disable root. Fortunately, I could go to the BIOS settings right there. There's an option in Grub for that. So that's my Debian 11 installer we just saw there. So now this is going to reboot into the BIOS settings. So I'm going to go back into... That's right, I now use the keyboard instead of the mouse. Just like in the olden days. So I'm going to launch back into the Star Trek operating system. So that login manager was LightDM. That's how we logged in with the user and password and got into our environment. I don't have to do the Star Trek one, but I already have another one. This is just like an addition. See, if I go up here, I can select X session instead. And I end up in a terminal, basically. That's not what I wanted to do. So I just typed in exit. Now I can press LCARS and go like that. I'm gonna press WinX to do the terminal again. And to disable root, the root account, once you've already enabled it, then let me see if I can find, I wrote down the instructions. So you want to go to, in the etc patchwd file, and where it says root right here, rather than saying bin bash at the end, you want it to say sbin / no login. That's what you want to do to disable the root account. So I think if I now try to go into root, the account is not available. So that's one way to disable the root account. You can re-enable it using sudo, like I just did here. But sudo commands will still work, as you can see. So if you need to use root privileges, you still have that. But I enabled root because sudo wasn't installed, and I think I need root to put it on there. Otherwise, I could probably boot into a live environment and install it. But I locked myself out somehow. So those are some options right there. So yeah, that's all I'm going to show for that. So that's how you disable the root account. So now we're going to go back into my other Debian installation where I'm using BSPWM, which is the Debian Titus.